Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. I am Dave Bryan of SteelersDepot.com, and obviously I'm doing the opening today, and that means Alex Kozora is not with me. Alex is made his annual trek down to Mobile, Alabama, for the 2023 Senior Bowl, which is getting underway this week. Actually, I think today all of the activities begin down there. He'll be down there all week. And we'll be flying back, I think, right before the game gets underway next weekend. He is down there with Jonathan Hightritter, Tyler Wise, and Ross McCorkle. So we have four people down in Mobile covering the the Senior Bowl this week. And while that's going on, we have had five people out here in Las Vegas covering the Shrine Bowl. So we hope you're enjoying, the coverage that we're getting out of those people, and that will obviously continue on through the early portion of this week as well too. So with everybody out of town, it's that time again to welcome back to the show. He usually makes about, 2, 3, 4 appearances a year, I think, on the Terrible Podcast. He's been with me a long time. I'm, of course, talking about Tom Mead, and you can follow Tom on Twitter. Let's see, it's at THMead3. And hope you're doing so. If you've listened to the podcast for a long time, you've heard Tom on with me, usually around draft time on top of it. So without further ado, Tom, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. How are you?
Good, Brother Dave. Thanks. Happy to be back. I want to give a shout out to everybody at the East-West Shrine game right now. Their coverage has been fantastic, and all the information they're sending back to us is extremely helpful. So kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm so blessed now. We've got the site's come a long way since you've come on here, Tom. And Tom has been with me. I don't know, Tom, you've been with me, about 8 years, I think? Something like that, 7, 8 years?
I think it's probably close to like 5, I think.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It does feel like you've been with us for a long time here. I found Tom actually on Twitter, and Tom was one of those. He went through the Scouting Academy and all. He's obviously a Steelers fan, and Tom was one of those guys that, he would just post his work on Twitter, go about his business, and showed his work along the way. And you could tell that Tom has some good experience over the years at pre-scouting players ahead of like the draft, and obviously during Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl time. So a lot about what we're going to talk today is about players that Tom has already kind of pre-scouted ahead of the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl taking place. We'll probably talk about 10 or so players there. But before we do, Tom, the conference championship games wrapped up on Sunday. We have now are preparing for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs to square off in the Super Bowl a couple weeks from now. First game was obviously a bit of a dud, if you will. Mostly, I think you could chalk it up to injuries, specifically at the quarterback position, penalties for the 49ers, and some I guess a little bit of more in that would be the way the Eagles were able to run the ball, especially to the weak side of the formation there throughout the game. So then the nightcap was obviously a much closer game, much more exciting game, with the Kansas City Chiefs breaking the tie with the Cincinnati Bengals there late in the game to move on to the Super Bowl. So let's start first with kind of your general reaction, Tom, to the Eagles game against the 49ers there.
Disappointment is the first word that comes to mind, because I think if San Francisco could have stayed healthy, it would have been a little bit closer. But you got to give credit to Philadelphia. They've been dominant on both sides of the ball pretty much most of the year. and that was clearly evident. They were able to run the ball at will. Their defense dominated. Especially with San Francisco only being able to run the ball for half the game. I was really hoping for McCaffrey to just let him have the ball. Let's see what he could do at quarterback. But there was issues. The penalties were huge. There's the refereeing there was questionable calls in both games. You expect the best out of the best from everybody this weekend, and unfortunately, that's not what we got in the first game.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. And boy, those string of penalties there on that one drive there I forget exactly what part of the game that was, but those really took the toll. And, 3, I think, defensive penalties within that. And once they had lost, really essentially both of their quarterbacks, even though Brock Purdy came back in, everybody knew at that point that they weren't going to do much more than some screen game stuff on that. And, the Eagles were just able to wear them down, especially with that offense of theirs and, the way that they were able to run the football there. So, yeah, I'm with you. The best way to describe that game was really disappointing because it makes you kind of wonder how much more of a game that would have been had Brock Purdy not got hurt early on there and, been able to throw the football down the field a bit. All right, the nightcap, man, bad ankle and all. And, Travis Kelce came into this game with busted up back, it seemed like. And all that aside, those two looked like they were absolutely fine. They got some good running out of Isaiah Pacheco, who about this time last year was out in Las Vegas, participating in the East-West Shrine game. He looked absolutely fantastic. The Bengals overcame a lot of their own mistakes. They turned the football over for the most part, and they. There was a point in that, I don't know, early fourth quarter, late third quarter, right around in there, especially on into later portions of the game where it looked like the worm was turning a little bit. It looked like really that the Bengals might win this game. So what are some of your takeaways from that late game?
With Kansas City, it's perseverance. Like you said, Mahomes had the ankle issue. Kelce had the back issue. They were down to their last 2 or 3 receivers at the end of the game. They did enough, and give credit to that defensive line because there was pressure on Burrow, every time he dropped back. Chris Jones up the middle just played phenomenally. And on the offensive side, Pacheco running the ball. Our team out there last year, Dr. Mel, I think, was all over him.
Yeah.
And Josh was all over him, and that dude runs angry, and it's fun to watch. He's hard to tackle. But I'm hoping they can get healthy, get the receivers back. I'm hoping both teams can be healthy for the Super Bowl at least, so we can have full squads going in.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the good part about there being now a 2-week lag here, because I think I read a tweet late last night that Juju Smith-Schuster could barely walk, and I think, like you said, they got a couple of receivers banged up in that. But that Pacheco, man, for a small back, small size, you're right. He does run angry and is pretty decent in short yardage, and obviously can catch the football out of the backfield and make people miss. And he gives a lot of effort in pass protection as well too. There. So early thoughts on the Super Bowl.
Right now, I'm thinking it's going to be. I like the Eagles. I mean, they've been the best team overall the entire season. I think on both sides of the ball, they can make plays for you to win games. And, if they can control the ball and control the clock by running it like they have been and limit the chances the Chiefs have, I think the Eagles are going to come on top.
Yeah, I think I haven't made up my mind. I thought about it last night, thinking which way I'm kind of leaning here. And the Chiefs have obviously have a little bit of experience being in that big game before, but when you look at both sides of the football, man, both these teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles, number 1 and number 3 in adjusted net yards per passing attempt differential stat there. So
what a surprise, huh?
Yeah, but I keep going back to that stat. Man, they proven year in and year out for the most part, and to have the top, two of the top three teams, playing in the Super Bowl, there usually you get them, somewhere within, I think generally in the top 5 or top 7 out of there. But a big win for that stat when it comes to this year's Super Bowl. And I think we're set for a pretty good game as long as as you mentioned, Kansas City can get healthy there, especially with their wide receivers there. Okay, don't want to spend too much time on what took place this weekend in the NFL. Obviously, we have you on this time of year to talk about some player prospects and getting this draft season started. I know you've climbed into probably a lot more tape than I have at this point. I'm still trying to scratch the surface on some of these top guys, and then into some of these second and third round guys. And you've only got a group of, I think, 68 or 69 players that are declaring as underclassmen. That number's way down this year. I think these kids are finally learning their lesson that it used to have numbers around 110, 120 of these underclassmen, and a lot of them would go undrafted, and probably a handful of those obviously wouldn't even get signed, 2 undrafted contracts there. So I think they're getting educated over the time that unless they're pretty secure with the fact that they might get drafted in the first 3 rounds, that they better just stay in the school. So we've seen that list really take a hit this past year. I think last year, I don't know, it was like 81 or 89 or something. And once again, I think it's decreased down to 68 or 69 this year. But you've already got a few profiles up on the site, Tom. So let's start with rolling, down through those, and you giving us the kind of the 4-1-1 on each and how they fit with us, would fit with the Steelers.
Yeah, funny enough, 2 of the 3 profiles I've done so far are for underclassmen. So,
okay,
I've jumped into that pool already. The first guy I looked at was Drew Sanders, an inside linebacker from Arkansas. He played his first 2 years at Alabama and was an edge rusher. He transferred to Arkansas, and Arkansas runs pretty much almost like a 3-2-6 most of the time. So they only have 3 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers on the field. So he got moved to the middle. So this was his first year playing inside. He put up good numbers over the course of the year. I think he had over 100 tackles. He had 9.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups. He's got great size. He's listed at 6'5", 233, and he looks every bit of that size. Very athletic. He's got range from sideline to sideline. He chases the ball everywhere, even downfield. He played off the ball this year, but he has experience on the edge, which I think defensive coordinators are going to love, that they can use him on sub packages and use him as a pass rusher. He showed a good pass rush plan using a bunch of different moves with spins and swims and long arms. So there's definitely something to work with there. He's a very good tackler. He uses his length well. He's got the speed to chase down guys and uses his length to take down runners. He's got experience in zone coverage, but he didn't do a lot of man coverage. But I think with his athleticism, he can cover like tight ends and running backs on the regular. Obviously, it's going to take some time because he's still learning the position, but he looked. I was really impressed with him, and he's got room to add some bulk to his frame too. This is the type of linebacker I've been trying to get to Pittsburgh for the last couple of years. Last year it was Quay Walker. The year before that it was Jamin Davis. Both who were first-round picks. Both are long, lean linebackers who really only had 1 year of experience. But I'm trying to get that long, athletic inside linebacker that can play 3 downs. And I don't know. 17 might be on the edge of too high for this guy. Maybe 32 might be better, but I really like what I saw out of this kid.
Boy, 6'5". That would be quite the quite a difference for what Steelers normally draft at the inside line. You look at the annual Alex Kozora, what they look for list that he puts up every year of measurables for the different positions, and usually those guys come in around 6'1". And I think it's hard. You'd be hard pressed to find any at 6'2". So what was it most that about Sanders that when you jumped in doing profiles this year that you said, man, that's a guy that I want to be the first one that I jump on here?
It's that size and athleticism combination. I mean, 6'5", you're usually it's a TJ Watt on the edge. That's where those guys usually end up, and right. He has played there. But putting him on the inside with his athleticism to cover sideline to sideline, and if you're going to put him in coverage and have quarterbacks trying to throw over a 6'5" guy with another 33 inches on the arm to throw over, it's going to make the middle of the field very difficult. And Pittsburgh hasn't had that good coverage linebacker in the middle of the field for a while, and they need that.
And you look, I mean, without a doubt, we'll see what happens with Devin Bush this offseason. But even if they were to re-sign Devin Bush, it would be for a minimum value contract. I think you, along with everybody that listens to this, most people are inclined to say that Devin Bush is not coming back this offseason. And even if he does, once again, it would be at a minimal salary with no guarantee that he'd be the week 1 starter. So, another guy that, we'll have to see what happens with this offseason is obviously Miles Jack. He's set to earn $8 million in a base salary in 2023. I think he makes it at the very least past March 15th because really the cupboard is really bare there at the inside linebacker position for the Steelers this offseason. They'll have to figure out what to do with Robert Spillane. They're probably going to re-sign him. But even if they do, you don't have much there at position. So I don't think you'll see by March 15th. I mean, you could cut Miles Jack. There's no rule against it, but man, you really would put yourself in a big hole. And yes, I know Mark Robinson, the arrow is pointing up on him, but you're talking about a kid that was a 1-year player at the inside or at the off the ball linebacker position in college. Obviously didn't play a lot of snaps for the Steelers in his rookie season. It might take a little bit of time there. So, and it's hard to imagine. I mean, we'll see. I mean, could this team go out and get a player such as Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills if they allow him to hit free agency? I mean, you never want to say never there, but there's a whole supply and demand thing when it comes to free agents, and Edmonds would be at the top of the list of off the ball linebackers. So I still stand in the bucket of, man, I will be very surprised if this team goes out and gets Edmonds during the offseason. But if they do, it obviously would decrease the need of going early in the draft at the inside linebacker position here. But I think we both agree that the inside linebacker position in the Steelers defense is one that they probably need to address at some point during this draft, right?
I think absolutely. Like you said, there's not much there right now. I think Bush is already checked out mentally, so I don't even think he wants to come back. Jack, he started off really. I thought he was pretty good early in the season. Maybe he got banged up, and I think he had an ankle issue or something late in the season, or a groin issue. He couldn't run very well. But healthy, I would take him back. And Spillane, I think the team likes him a lot, but they need more. That's not enough. So I think they'll definitely address it at some point. Hopefully, I think there's a chance they could get. There's going to be a lot of places on the defense. They're going to need players. So I think the linebackers definitely one of them.
All right, what's one game if people want to check out Sanders? What's one game that's a must watch for him?
Ooh, good question.
Probably any one of them SEC games, right? Alabama, Auburn.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go toward the later in the season, the LSU Mississippi. You know, he got a little bit better each game. You know, you could see the processing better. There were times early in the season where he might take a deep angle on balls to the outside. He got better at that, playing under control. So, check out LSU and Mississippi.
All right, let's see another player. Let's see. I think the second one that you did is a guy that's probably going to be an early, maybe even the first cornerback off the board. I haven't gotten deep into that class yet, but I think the good news for the Steelers is this cornerback class this year seems to be pretty deep and with some nice players at the top of it as well too. The other, and I'm talking about Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Tell us, fill us in on Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon.
Yeah, another junior, another young player. I think he's only 20 right now. He'll turn 21 in June. He's listed at 6'2", 201. So he's got very good size. His speed. He runs very easy. Like any deep shot that went against him, he didn't look stressed out at all. He's had two older sisters who were All-American in track and field, so I think he's got some of that in his genes. He's a free mover on the field. I really liked how he wasn't, nothing seemed to faze him all that much. He's got experience in man and zone coverages. His best fit is on the outside, but he can play in the slot as well. I think the third game I watched was against Arizona, and I'm looking on the outside and go, where is he? And he played pretty much in the slot that entire game. So he's got that. He can do that as well. Playing press, he's very patient with his feet and his jam. He doesn't, overreact to any fakes by the receivers. He was in phase on his deep routes, in the pocket of the wide receiver. Again, like I said, nice, easy runner, stress-free. So he doesn't worry about a guy taking him deep with his speed. He's a good tackler in space. When you put him in one-on-one situations, he can make the tackle, but he's not someone who's going to go into a pile and help out. He'll let other guys take care of that. And, a lot of cornerbacks do that. They don't really jump into the pile that much. So, I mean, that's not that biggest knock on him. And he improved his ball production last year. He had no interceptions going into 2022, but he had four interceptions and 7 pass breakups. So it was nice to see him make that adjustment. He started every game he played in college, all 30. I think if you bring in someone like him, there's no pressure. If they resign Sutton and they have who's on the other side, the guy from Buffalo.
Oh, Wallace, Levi Wallace, yeah.
Yeah, if you have Wallace and Sutton, you can leave them on the outside and put Gonzalez in the slot early on, or vice versa. You could put Sutton inside and put Gonzalez in the slot. So there wouldn't be pressure to play him 100% of the snaps all the time. He is young. He's still got some growing to do. There was a few contested catches where I thought he'd make a play and didn't get the ball. He needs to add some strength to take on receivers, because he can get muscled around a little bit by the bigger receivers, but there's definitely room for him to add that. With him, there's Witherspoon, there's a bunch of guys that could go in the first round. So he may go before 17, maybe in that 12 to 15 range, but it all depends on which teams like which cornerback. So he could be there at 17, and I think the Steelers don't have a recent history of taking those corners, but the job Terrell Austin and the team has done in improving that backfield, making them, they led the league in interceptions this year. I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can take a young defensive back and build him into what they want, compared to the past decade when people were completely against that. But if you're going to take a chance on a guy, a 20-year-old, 6'2", 200-pound defensive backs a pretty good choice.
Well, they definitely like him long, and he certainly is long. I think initially he's listed at 6'2", probably going to come in about, 6'1", 3/4", or you think he's going to come in at every bit of 6'2"?
I think he'll probably come in. Of all the conferences, the Pac-12 is usually pretty close with their measurement, so I think he'll be right about 6'2".
All right, and he ought to run like the wind, too, with that track background of his as well, too. And obviously the Steelers, let's see, last time drafted a cornerback in the first round was Artie Burns, and then I think before that you got to go back a long time. But this is the kind of kid that might very well be off the board at 17, right?
It's definitely possible. Like I said, it depends on, each team likes different types of corners, and it all depends on what the teams ahead of them like. So he could be gone, but if he's there at 17, he's definitely a consideration.
How would you rate his tackling willingness on a scale of 1 to 10?
On the outside, like I said, when he's one-on-one, he's absolutely willing. And he's a good tackler. He wraps up. He takes guys down. It's just when there's a pile, he doesn't want to get into it. So if you want to dock him for the pile, I'd say his willingness is like an 8 on the outside, or maybe 8 or 9 on the outside, and inside's probably closer to like a 3.
Okay. Will he come up and kind of lower that shoulder to turn, to get a play turned inside?
Yeah, he will be the force player if need be. I'd like to see him do it a little closer to the line of scrimmage. He kind of does it, kind of far off, so there's room to run, but he will be that force player if needed.
All right, pretty heady guy as far as understanding what he's looking at, you think?
Yeah, in zone he was playing like a 3 deep. I really liked his route awareness, especially stuff coming from the other side of the field. He was very good at picking up anything coming into his area. I think he's got the head to play, and the willingness to stick to his assignment and execute it.
All right, let's see. That's got Sanders and Gonzalez out of the way. Who's next on your list that people should be looking for when it comes to player profiles you're doing, Tom?
Okay, the final one I did was just J.L. Skinner, a safety from Boise State. He's listed at 6'4", 218 pounds.
Goodness.
Yeah. So trying to find 6'4" guys that have been, drafted in recent memory, there's really only 2, and that's Jeremy Chin, who's of similar size but much more versatile, and Cam Chancellor is the other one, who was about the same height but a little bit heavier. So those are the guys, to compare. He's somewhere in between those 2, I think. He's got experience playing the split safety. He can play in the box, and he occasionally played in the slot. At the NFL level, I would not want him covering one-on-one on the outside or playing the single high safety. His range is not that good. He's another one who's very good with the route combinations. He played a lot of cover 2 early, and then on dime situations, he dropped down in the box and play the curl flat or the middle of the field zone areas. He was good in those situations, reading the quarterback and making a play on the ball. Very active communicator. You see him talking pre-snap with everybody constantly. Runs to the ball. Physical tackler for his size. He's very lean, especially below the waist. He's got very thin legs, but not afraid inside or outside to come up and tackle the ball carrier. And for his size, he does a nice job of getting low too and getting under them so he can make the tackle. He's another one. When they put him on the edge, he'll force the ball inside if needed. Like I said, on the negative side, I want him at high safety, at the single high safety, or in pass coverage. If he's in man coverage, he's a little clunky with his change of direction and movement. And his speed is more of a buildup, so he doesn't have that great acceleration. But I think his speed numbers should be pretty good, though. He can get, once he gets going, he was able to run down guys pretty well.
What's your kind of early look at him as far as potential, where he might slot round wise?
Round wise, I think probably a third rounder, I would say. He may. I was debating between third and fourth, and I went with a third round. He may slip a little just because he's probably, you only want to play him in a zone heavy defense, and he's best as a box safety. Okay. So he may have more of a limited role, but getting a big safety like that to make again, another guy that's hard to throw over. And he's willing to make tackles. I think he'd fit in a box, and Terrell Edmunds is not a definite. So they're going to be looking for someone like that if Terrell Edmunds signs elsewhere. I don't know if Skinner is as flexible enough as the team likes to use their safeties, but he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
All right, and it'd be interesting to see. They got obviously two safeties in Edmonds and DeMonte Casey, both scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. Without a doubt, you would try to re-sign both of those two if you could, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, they'd both be high on my list. I think Casey gives them the ability to move Minka around more. They can play Casey deep and move Minka around, which I think is a huge benefit to the defense. And I know Edmonds is a kind of a hot button for some of the fans, but I think the past 2 years he's played really well. Especially he's made more plays, as a blitzer. He's made more plays on the ball in the air, and I think he's played really well, especially closer to the box. So I think those two will be very high on the re-sign list.
Yeah, look, I was, and I've said this several times, I was real excited starting around preseason time about Casey, especially when it came to his tackling, and was really looking forward how they might be able to use him. And obviously he got hurt during the preseason. He had to wait half a season to get him on the field. But once he did, obviously his return coincided with TJ Watt's. But that defense really took off, it seemed, at that point. Obviously, the quality of competition, the teams that they played in the second half needs to be factored in and all like that. And, I'm with you on Edmonds as well, too. Edmonds is never going to be that flashy guy. But I think just, at least incrementally throughout, since he was drafted, he's made some slight improvements. It's more of kind of, I guess, the devil that with him until you can get that next starting young strong safety in the building. But if this team probably does draft a safety at all this year, you would think it would be more of the strong safety type, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, like if they could sign either one of those guys, if they sign Casey, that gives them more flexibility, but they're going to need that guy down inside. So I think the box safety, the big tackler guy, I think is what they'd be looking for.
All right, let's move along into, got the Shrine Bowl going on right now in Vegas and all. And we've been able to pass, quite a bit of you're obviously not out here in Vegas, but, we've been able to pass along quite a bit of the all 22 practice film along to you. And you've done some scouting ahead of it as well, too. I think a couple of years ago, you were the guy that initially turned all of us on Steelers Depot, on Alex Highsmith. And, man, what a find that has become. So why don't you just kind of roll down the guys, that are participating in the East-West Shrine Bowl this year that have your attention, that you think kind of fit, what the Steelers look for?
Okay. I'm going to start with the interior offensive line because I think there's a lot of prospects in Vegas this weekend that have shown some ability. I think there's some good ones out there. On the east side, there were two guys. The first one is Alex Palczewski from Illinois. He's a sixth-year senior. Played right tackle mostly. Has played left guard and right guard. He was a Sporting News All-American. Was a second or third team All-American on 5 other publications. Because he's been there 6 years, he has 65 starts in his career.
Wow.
Yeah. And this year, before the bowl game, he had 668 pass block snaps at right tackle without allowing a sack. He plays with good pad level and balance, and he showed good timing on the combo blocks in the team portion. I like the versatility of being able to play inside and right tackle. Steelers like their linemen to have experience, and you can't get more than 65 starts. Yes, he's an older player. It's in his 6th year, but you're going to have a lot of those 6-year guys, because of the COVID year. He was one of the guys on the East that caught my eye, along with Chandler Zavala from NC State. He played left guard, 6'3.5", 322 pounds, and 33-inch arms with 10 3/8 hands.
Those are some lobster crackers right there.
Yeah, and it showed in the practices. He played 2 years at NC State after transferring from Fairmont State. He had a back injury that needed minor surgery in 2021. He looked solid. He looked very consistent, solid in pass pro, strong hands. He would lock onto guys. He was able to mirror and sustain. I didn't know a lot about him going into this, but I think he's someone definitely worth a deeper look. He's another 6th-year guy, because I think he missed 2020 as well with a knee injury. So that's something that needs to be taken into account as well. On the west side, there were again more of these guys. Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas is a player that our team out there has mentioned several times.
Yeah, I've watched a little bit of him already. He's one that I've watched a little bit on here.
Yeah, 4-year starter, 3 of them at center, and one he played 9 games at right guard and 2 at left guard, so he's got flexibility as well.
What I've seen mostly of him, I think, was his center snaps. Is that going to be that's his primary position though, and best position, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. 3-year starter there at center, and that's where he. I don't even know if they used him in practice at guard, so I think he's definitely a center. He looks solid against any competition that was thrown against him. He positions himself well. He's able to sustain his blocks. I like his feet to mirror. I don't think the position, the center or the guard position, is maybe the highest need. I think the team liked what they saw at the end of last year, but depth is definitely something they're going to need going forward. Antonio Mafi from UCLA, another one that our team has mentioned out there. He's listed at 6'2" and 3/4, 338 pounds. I'd like to see him drop about 10 to 15. He looks a little sloppy around the middle, but another guy, balanced, playing with pad level. Didn't really struggle against anybody that I saw out there. I think he only had 16 starts in college, though, so he's a little less on the experience side. And one more here. Well, maybe the biggest surprise is a guy named Mark Evans out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. He played left tackle at Arkansas Pine Bluff, was a 4-time first-team All-Southwest Athletic Conference. He was the Willie Rofe Award winner, which is for the top high school offensive lineman in Arkansas. He was the Phil Steele FCS Offensive Lineman of the Year. In the practices, they've used him at center and guard. He's shown good grip strength. He's got the mobility to climb to the second level. Shows good recovery. He was a left-handed snapper at center, so that was interesting. You don't see a lot of those.
No, you don't.
But
he's a little undersized too, isn't he?
Let's see. Evans.
What is he, like 6'2" and a quarter? I think at the Shrine, 293.
Yeah. A little undersized. He could probably add some weight, but the arm length is pretty good, and the hand size again, 10 and a quarter.
Yeah.
I think coming from Arkansas, Pine Bluff is probably a lower level, but he's got some ability there that was fun to see. So those are the inside interior offensive linemen. Another guy that really impressed was defensive back Terrell Smith from Minnesota.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of him. That's a feisty little dude right there.
Yeah, 6 foot, a half inch, 207, 32 and 3/4 inch arms. He was a 4-time academic All-American. He was the Georgia State 100-meter champ as a sophomore in high school, was the 200-meter champ as a junior in high school. His best time was a 10.32 100 meters. That's pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And at his size, I think I counted at least 4 pass breakups on plays in the team and one-on-one situation.
I think his tape too. A lot of I can't remember specifically which game I watched, but a lot of breaks on the ball real well and contested quite a few.
Yeah, I think this guy is definitely worth looking at. He was not on my radar at all, but after reading about him and watching him play, I think there's definitely something to take a look at.
All right. What else you got on your list of Shrine Bowl guys?
How about Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA? We had information that he had been, I think, in contact with the team. He looked. I liked his arm. He threw the ball better than I thought he was. He was placing it pretty well. He moves pretty effortlessly. That double threat quarterback, not someone you'd need right away, and he's probably going to be a late round pick anyway. But if you could bring him in as the third quarterback and let him learn and have that athletic backup down the road, it's someone definitely to keep an eye on. At the receiver position, there were a few guys on each team, a couple guys on each team that caught my eye because of the ability to separate. And that's something I hold highly when it comes to receivers, because if you can't get open, it's a lot harder to catch the ball. On the East roster, Jadon Hasselwood from Arkansas, he's listed at 6'2 1/4", 213. He started his career at Oklahoma and then transferred to Arkansas for his last season. He had a drop on day one, but looked much better after that. He gets separation easily. I liked his quickness at the snap. He didn't look that big to me on tape, but I like the size from him, and I think he could be either a slot or an outside option. Jalen Cropper from Fresno State is another one. I think he was open on every route he ran. He was able to separate. He was able to stack the defensive back on a fade route. His routes were all very nice to create separation. There's definitely some skill there.
He's more. Is he more of a slot guy, or was he kind of an X or what?
Cropper was in practice. I haven't watched really the game film yet. I just went off the practice stuff, and I'm not sure where he'd fit. Let me just look at his size.
He's a little undersized at 171, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. So he'd definitely be a slot guy. 5'11", 171. He'd definitely be a slot guy. As well as these next two, Demario Douglas from Liberty. He's really small, just a hair under 5'8", 175. He had 172 catches in college and almost 2,200 yards. He showed some juice. They ran a reverse with him. He had a nice whip route. Again, another guy that separated consistently from the slot option. And the final one was Dallas Daniels from Jackson State. He had to secure this route. He went from Arizona Community College to Northeast Oklahoma to Western Illinois and ended up in Jackson State. He had 63 catches last year, 692 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Again, the ability to separate, quickness, made a nice catch on a back shoulder throw. Not names that were really on my radar, but are definitely, that's the Steelers need a slot receiver, someone who's going to be able to produce, because they got nothing out of that for pretty much the entire year. So I don't know if that's going to come from the draft or from a free agent signing, but I think there's going to need to add someone there.
And obviously, Zay Flowers is a guy that's garnering a lot of attention, probably going to be the player at this year's Shrine, the highest drafted player at this year's Shrine Bowl. Some people even have him, I think, going first round. But you would think somewhere within those first two rounds, a guy like Zay Flowers is going to come off the board. So, Boston College prospect or product, and Mike Tomlin has spent a little bit of time around Boston College last couple of years there. If this team does go wide receiver, let's say first 4 rounds of the draft, would you expect it to be more of a slot guy or a big slot guy? They obviously have Calvin Austin coming back, didn't play his rookie season due to a foot injury. To me, it kind of feels like if you think that you've got something there in Calvin Austin, maybe you go with a little bit of a bigger slot guy, and maybe even somebody that's got a little bit of versatility to him positionally as well too.
Absolutely, because if they don't have much in the slot behind Pickens and Johnson, you don't have much either. So they're going to need someone who could fill that role if, unfortunately, one of those guys ever got injured. So if someone that has the versatility to play outside, has a little bit more size, but can kick into the slot as well, I think that's the route. I don't think they're going to specifically look for a
Z or an X, right?
Yeah,
or a small slot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be more of an X that can play the slot as well.
One of those guys, and the only reason I know about him is because the Steelers did, another guy that our guys in Las Vegas talked to, and he said, which all these guys end up talking to all the teams anyway, I think. But Bryce Ford Wheaton out of West Virginia, 6'3.5", 222 pounds, 33 5/8 inch arms. Overall, and you turn on the tape on him, and I think predominantly, I think I watched the Pitt game, and I forget which other one I watched on him, but I think he was primarily used at West Virginia as an X receiver, but in digging a little bit deeper, I think, probably 25 to around 25 targets or so for his college career out of the slot. He's got that feel to kind of one of those later round big slot candidates. Have you watched any maybe outside of the Pitt game is what he's I think pretty much known for, at least what most people recognize him for.
Yeah, I haven't really watched a lot of him or other than the practices this week, but his size is very intriguing. I mean, his wingspan is almost 7 feet. It's with the 33 and
33 5/8. Yeah, he's got a wingspan.
That's monstrous. So
yeah. He can scratch. He can scratch his back without issue, I don't think.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's. We've heard good things out of the team out there, and he's going to be worth a look.
You view this wide receiver class as pretty deep overall? It feels like it is.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know if there's too many real standouts in it, but I think there's a lot of depth there. Dontavian Wicks is a name that comes to mind from Virginia. There's I think there's going to be guys that can be had in the third, fourth, fifth round.
What about the defensive line and edge that fits the Steelers? A guy that I've watched a little bit before they got started out in Vegas is that PJ Mustipher out of Penn State, 6'3" and 3/4, 315 pounds. More of a run stuffer, I think, than a pass guy. And I don't think he, at least from what I've seen on him, he doesn't project as a guy that could play that, at least not initially, that 3-eye or the 4-eye or the 3 tech along those lines. Feels like if he came in as a late round guy, he would be more of a 0 or 1 technique. In a 3-man front there. He's one guy. And then I think the Texas kid is the other one that's turning some heads there.
Yeah. Mustipher, he's a 2-time captain. He had 28 starts. He only had 3 sacks, so he doesn't really produce as on the pass rush side, but he's really strong and is a solid player inside. Like he plays with a little bit of an edge too. He got into a little scuffle with one of the players. I think he would definitely fit, like you said, in that 0-1 tech spot nicely. And the Texas guy was Keandre Coburn, right? 6'1" and an 1/8, 344.
Yeah, true plugger there.
True plugger there. Yeah, I think Josh was raving about him, saying how he's just eating up blockers. He didn't show. Neither of the Texas guys showed much as a pass rusher, him or Moro Ojomo, but. As a run defender, he fits that mold of a Casey Hampton clogging up the middle, another former Texas guy.
Yeah, and you think there's a good chance that this team needs some defensive line help, right? And really, they could use a 3 tech, 4-eye tech, and potentially a plugger in the middle as well too. If they have enough picks to kind of throw at it this year's draft. I mean, you look at the Steelers defensive line overall, and the guy, you're going to probably lose Alualu this offseason to retirement. We're still trying to figure out who is DeMarvin Leal? What's the plan going to be for him? Moving forward, you got Wormley coming off of a knee injury. What's going to happen with Larry Ogunjobi? Will he be back? If you don't bring back Ogunjobi and you got a guy like Wormley that's going to, potentially be sidelined to start the season, who is Loudermilk just a backup guy, or can that guy finally take that next step and be, kind of the complement to Cam Hayward over there? We'll see if this team goes the free agent route but it really feels like they've got to throw at least one pick of their first 3 picks at defensive line, doesn't it?
I 100% agree. This team under Colbert had a history of drafting defensive linemen pretty much every year, but in the 6th or 7th round. They need to invest on something earlier because, like you said, there's the possibility of several holes, and there's the 2 young players. We don't know what they have in those yet, so there needs to be a significant investment. One of the guys, Dante Stills from West Virginia, he has the look of that 5 tech, but he's 6'3" and a half. He's listed at 289, but he only had 32 and an 1/8 inch arms. I wish he was a little bit longer because he was very active and he showed some decent pass rush moves. I don't know if he would fit the size requirements they usually look for, but he showed out pretty well so far in the practices.
Let's see. What about edge guys?
Edge guys, there's an interesting group of especially like smaller school guys, young guys we haven't heard a whole lot of. The first guy that caught my eye when this roster came out was Viliama Fehoko from San Jose State. I don't think he's been practicing. I didn't see him out there, but he's 6'3" and 5'8", 267. He played inside some and on the edge some for San Jose State. He was the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. He has 23 career sacks, and his cousin is Vita Vea. So I like those genes. But watching a little bit of him on the game film, he's very active, strong hands, good motor. One of those guys that's just at the point of attack is hard to block because he's constantly moving. There's O'Shawn Mathis from Nebraska, 6'4.5", 247 with almost 35-inch arms. He transferred from TCU, and I read that at TCU they were using him, I guess, more inside than on the edge. So there's still some meat on the bone there to see from him. But in the practices, he knocked down a pass. He showed strength and pad level, setting the edge. For 247, he looked a lot stronger than his size.
But Jose, I want to dive. I've only seen really the sack reel on Jose Ramirez out of Eastern Michigan. He's one of those squattier edge guys, 6'1" and 7'8", 249. So he's got more of that kind of that. I don't want to. He's not built like James Harrison. I tell you who. When looking at the practice film on him, who immediately jumped in my mind is the Carl Lawson.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he's got a long arm. He uses 33.25-inch arms, and boy, he knows how to use them. He's got some good speed to power there. Once again, 6'1" and 7'8", 249 pounds overall. But I think I read somewhere didn't he lead the nation in sacks last year or somewhere along in there? And once again, him being undersized at 6'6", not even 6'2", that's going to all those squattier edges get pushed down anyway. So we're probably talking about, I don't know, round 5 or later type of guy overall. But the production will be hard to ignore, and the Steelers, probably wouldn't shy away from a little bit squattier guy like that later on in the draft, especially if he can play some special teams. But that's one guy. Any other edges to add to the list here?
Well, just on Jose Ramirez, I had 2 comments that I wrote down on him. One, it's aggressive, and 2, keeps coming. There was constant. There was no getting hung up on this move. Like if that didn't work, he'd move to something else. If that didn't work, he'd move to something else. He was constantly making an effort to get to the ball. So I think you're definitely right that he should be on the radar in that day 3 range. So. A couple other guys that caught my eye. Brenton Cox, the guy from Florida, he was dismissed from the team, which may take him off the board, but 6'3", 254 with 33.25-inch arms. He showed a nice inside spin and a club spin on the edge. Titus Leo from Wagner College, 6'3" and 3/8", 235, 33 and 6/8-inch arms. So more length than you'd expect from him. He showed a nice bull rush, a good upfield burst, a good punch with his hands. Once he gets to the corner, he's got to turn a little quicker. He was getting too deep on some of his pass rushes, but there's definitely something to work with there. And of course, you have to mention Habib Baldonado from Pittsburgh. Another guy with good size, 6'3" 3/4", 257, 33 and 1/8-inch arms, and 10.25-inch hands. He was in the backfield constantly in the team portion. Didn't matter which tackle he was going against, he was getting back there. He showed solid turn on the corner. He used a long arm. His hands were active. Obviously, being in the building, I'm sure they already have an eye on him, but there was definitely a handful of guys that caught my attention and definitely, again, they don't need starters there, right? It's just that depth position. But there's really nothing behind the starter. So there's going to be some kind of ad there, and I don't think it'll be too early in the draft. But there's some names here that will show up later in the draft that will be productive.
I know nothing about Truman Jones other than his bio out of Harvard. What do you know anything about Truman Jones?
Basically the same thing in practice. He looks, he's a little thin below the waist. He showed a nice speed to bull rush. But when he's rushing on the edge, he's got very choppy steps. So he's not getting that depth right away that you'd want to see from an edge rusher. So, I mean, that's definitely something they can work on. But I mean, the body type was a little thin below the waist, but I mean, you can never have enough pass rushers. So even if it's someone you grab later with a UDFA, I think somebody will grab him.
All right. What's the hardest part about this early process?
I think the hardest part is getting too excited about the first guys you watch.
Yeah.
Because this is the part of the year I love. I love getting into these guys. I love digging and watching the tape. But those first couple guys always, grab your heart and you're like, yep, those are my guys. And you're afraid later down the road to put someone ahead of them or compare them to those guys. So trying to be as unbiased as you can throughout the whole process is huge, but especially early on because, I'm sure I'm going to end up loving Drew Sanders pretty much the entire process. But, I think that's an issue that I deal with.
What was the main thing that right out of the chute that had to be the first guy? Just the size, the measurables.
That athletic size and the versatility of being able to rush off the edge. That's a defensive coordinator is going to say, "Give me that. That's a ball of clay. I'm going to be able to put him, off the ball. I'm going to be able to put him on the edge. I'm going to have him mugging up the A gap and then blitzing there." There's just so many possibilities you could do, especially with someone with that kind of athleticism. So, that excites me.
All right. As we sit here in late January, and obviously free agency's yet to go, and a lot of things can obviously change as we start inching forward to the draft. Based on what you know about the Steelers as they sit right now, where is your head about positionally which way this team should go? Let's say the first 3 or 4 picks that they have in this draft.
This is good. This is an interesting year with Omar Khan at the helm now. I'm hoping, I should say, that things will be a little bit different because they never pick the guys I like. But I can't.
Don't feel bad. All mine end up on the Ravens.
So do mine. Yes. I'm not crapping on who they pick because they do an excellent job. But so I think even though defense was the stronger side of the ball this year, I think 2 of the first 3 picks will be defense, whether that's linebacker, defensive back, or defensive line. I think 2 of the top 3 picks will come from that group. Now, if one of those picks will probably be on the offensive side of the ball, I think most fans are going to want a tackle or a guard, but the Steelers like to draft a receiver in that 2nd, 3rd round area. And I don't know if that will change because of the success they've had. So I would not be surprised to see a receiver in either of those 2 picks in the 2nd round or the 3rd round. That's only 3 of the 4 picks. So I think it'll be defensive heavy early on in the draft.
What are your thoughts on offensive line? The biggest priority positionally?
Like I said earlier, I think the team is going to be fairly happy with how that second half of the season went. They ran the ball much better. I think in the numbers I did for our charting, of the 7 directions they can run the ball, 5 of the 7 directions, the numbers went up. So especially on the left side, which is behind Dan Moore and Kevin Dotson, the two most talked about offensive linemen on the team. So if you're going to replace anyone, I think Kevin Dotson is the guy. I think they like Dan Moore. I think they like his progression. I think they like him as a run blocker. Do they wish he was a better pass blocker and committed fewer penalties? Absolutely. But, you know, all these guys are young, and the Steelers are famous for showing respect and giving these guys a chance to improve. They're not going to give up on anybody early. I mean, Jalen Samuels made it 4 years on the team, and he was terrible. So I think if it's anywhere, I think it's going to be the left guard spot. But they definitely want to add depth back there, I think, as well.
I agree, and I know a lot of fans are, you know, and listeners are clamoring, man, they got to get another left tackle early, or they got to get a left guard early. And personally, from where I sit, right, I'd like to see him go defensive line early, but I could see, because of the depth issues, because look, Kendrick Green's just not going to cut it. Not even, I don't think, as a backup there. The tackle they have, you know, they were fortunate that he stayed healthy and didn't have to dig into the tackle depth. So they obviously need to do something there, you know, as well. Let me end you with this: true or false? The Steelers week 1, barring injury, the Steelers week 1 starting offensive line 5 will be the same 5 that ended the 2022 season.
That's a good question. I'm going with true. I don't think they're going to make any substantial changes. If they bring in a new offensive lineman, he's going to have to dazzle right away to get them to start him right away. So I'm going to go with true.
That's where I'm at right now. Now the draft could obviously change my answer on that, but especially if they take, you know, guard in one of those, or, you know, guard one of those first 2 picks or something like that. Tom, look, always a pleasure. You've been, you know, part of this fold for quite a while. Like I said, 3 or 4 times a year you sit in on these things. We'll have you on. Probably start, some of the more of these round tables after these guys get back from the Senior Bowl. That'll give you time to start catching up on some more film. And, as always, this time of year, man, and we certainly appreciate you sitting in when Alex is out of town and all like that. So, Tom, with that, appreciate your time, and appreciate you sitting in on this episode of the Terrible Podcast.
Appreciate you, brother. It's always a good time talking football, and I love the opportunity that you've given me, and the team you've built is fantastic, and the work that everybody is doing. So all you listeners, make sure you follow every single one of them, because we got a lot of information coming your way.
I appreciate you too, brother Tom. And you can follow Tom on Twitter at THMead3. He's easy to find there. Just enter that in if you're not already following him, and you should be able to follow him fairly easy there. And once again, we'll be having him on some of these roundtable podcasts that we'll be doing. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow the site at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also have an ad-free version of the site as well by going to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. We have a link up there in the bar to all the draft profiles. We'll start trying to get those organized a little bit better for you on the site as well too. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex, and today Tom Mead.